If you're just calling me to change the color of your drapes, then you're really not using me and all my skills and the years that I've spent studying and the time-tested formulas to the full use of their benefit. And that is
Yes.
kind of a shame, because you would then be missing out on an opportunity.
Welcome to Winning with Feng Shui. Join me, Candace, a certified Feng Shui practitioner, for a chat with Feng Shui experts from every walk of life. They'll share their inspirational stories of helping themselves and their clients achieve winning results and success using Feng Shui.
Hey guys, I'm so excited to welcome Jillian Rothschild-Scholar. So Jillian helps ambitious people who are feeling like there's something a bit off in their life, and they're looking for someone who they can trust and help them to get clarity, enabling them confidently to move forward and accelerate their results. Jillian is a classically trained Feng Shui expert who's been working in the private Feng Shui consultancy since 2010. She helps people who are feeling tormented with big unanswered life questions and unable to choose which direction to go. So they're looking for someone they can trust to help them get clarity so they can confidently move forward. She specializes in collaborating with clients over time to awaken new possibilities, including personal and professional goals, and assisting each client in achieving them. Welcome, Jillian. I'm so excited to have you on. I love chatting with you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be included. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So one of the things that I think struck me about or reading the bio, reading your introduction, is that, one of the main things that I've noticed, like a main theme that people or Feng Shui consultants really, I guess, kind of gravitate to, or I really notice the connection, is that a lot of people, that is where they start out with Feng Shui, where they don't know what they want in life, or they don't understand how to get that. So how do you help your clients get clarity? How does that look?
So one of the things I notice about my clients is that a lot of my clients are naturally intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this because I look at their 4 pillars of destiny chart, and I can see that there's something in their chart that indicates that they've got like a little special superpower, or they're a little intuitive. And so usually what ends up happening is they kind of know, like, something is really off. Like, this doesn't feel right. I can't put my finger on it. And then they start to look around and go, what's going on here? What do I need to adjust? Maybe I need some help. And then they get led to calling for support. And that can happen because they're relying on somebody else in their life to give them some direction. And that person is saying, hey, you should call this person for Feng Shui. Or maybe they've read a book or 2 or 3 or 4, and they're feeling confused, and they're not able to understand how to put together all the rules and methods that go with Feng Shui. And so then they start reaching out and going, I think I need some help. Can you tell me what's going on? Because my life was going really well, things were going fine, but suddenly things are not going fine, or they're not going the way I want. Or there's this accumulation of things aren't going right, they're not going the way I want, and then they get frustrated. And we all reach this sort of tipping point, if you will. Like Malcolm Gladwell is one of my favorite authors. He's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've not read The Tipping Point, it's an amazing book. So we all have this sort of tipping point where we go, this needs to change, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get more of what I want in my life. And that's how people find me. And I'm happy to help, using all of the resources in Chinese metaphysics, to help get them to a place where they can see what's not working from a Feng Shui perspective, what we can change, what we can update, and so we can get them into a path of energy that's more supportive.
That's awesome. I noticed too, most consultants, I think we all agree that it starts in here. It starts in the internal, because especially when we have, especially when there's an accumulation, but also when things like suddenly change, we're like, and we're not comfortable in that space anymore, that we may have been comfortable in, or we're having, those forced changes. But we really get in a mindset of, a victim mindset. We get sad, and it's just this downward spiral. And I think that's really where I found Feng Shui too. I was so at a loss of how to change things in my life, that I was like, we could do whatever. let's just try anything. you know, but because I wasn't previously familiar with Feng Shui, but definitely if I had been familiar, it probably would have been the first thing I would have tried to look at. So when you're helping your clients kind of get that clarity, where do you start? You kind of talked about starting with the Bazi chart, with the Chinese astrology.
Well, one of the very first things that I do with my clients is we have a discovery session. And so I need to have an understanding of what my clients are doing, what they're not doing, what their expectations are, and what their goals are. And once we have that established, then I can assess what resources I need to use in order to help get them where they want to be. And part of my discovery session helps me understand, like, are you doing the work that you need to do, and have an understanding of what the limitations are of Feng Shui? Because in classical Feng Shui, we know that there is heaven luck, human luck, and earth luck. And so we only have the ability to control a piece of this. I can only do so much. Part of your human luck is your mindset, your attitude, the work that you're putting in. If you tell me that you want a relationship and you are continuing to find the same kind of romance, the same kind of person over and over again, and you're not doing the internal work to change yourself, to get a different result, then there's very little that I can do to make Mr. Magic fall out of the sky. Like, that's not how it works. So you still have to be willing to do the things that are necessary to attract the things that you want. What I have found is that my best clients are the clients that are doing the manifestation work. They're doing the internal work. They're setting goals. They've got coaches in other areas of their lives. They're willing to do all of the things that it takes in order to help get them where they want to go. So what happens with the Feng Shui, when I do my bit, right, with all of the tools that I'm using, then when the opportunity comes, they're ready to take it. So one of the things that I'm explaining to my clients is that I'm here to help you increase your quotient of luck, meaning your opportunity, not your bank account getting bigger because you won the lottery. Lottery is chance and mathematics. What I'm here to do is help you understand that when the opportunities come, you need to be ready to take them, because at some point the universe will stop bringing you opportunities if you're not taking them, because you still need to take action and do your part. So there's a couple pieces in that, right? So the first thing I'm doing is assessing where they're at. And then once I do that, I can make a recommendation on what resources I can bring. And then that may also mean making recommendations about things that are outside of my purview, if you will. So if somebody needs to do something alternative with their health that I can't help with, they need to go see a TCM doctor, they need acupuncture, maybe they need a different kind of Western medicine physician. So the work that I'm doing is helping them get in better alignment so they can have the opportunity to get with the right doctor so they can get what they need. The answer to that is it's always customized, because I'm looking at a chart, I'm looking at the Feng Shui, and I'm seeing how we can get them into the slipstream of better energy so they can have more opportunity, instead of feeling like you're on a river. Like, when you're in the river, you want to go downstream, you want to go with the flow of the river. But if you're constantly rowing upstream and you're running into obstacles, you're not getting anywhere. We've got to turn that boat around. It doesn't always it's not like a light switch. You do have to get into alignment and then go, if that makes any sense.
Yes, I very much agree with that. I mean, you summed it up so perfect, I think, because I think a lot of people, and I mean, I think I was in this boat too when I started doing Feng Shui. I kind of expected that, oh, okay, I've placed everything. I started out just with items and some things like that, and trying to kind of, I guess, like Feng Shui each area of my room according to like the BTB compass, or that bagua. And I was like, well, how come my relationship isn't better? Well, I still actually never even, we didn't go to counseling. I mean, we didn't,
Yep.
learn about, each other,
How to
another
communicate and
person's
what your
needs.
needs are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
communication. Yeah.
You
And
just think
so,
that like magically fairy dust will sprinkle and like everyone
yeah.
will behave the way you want them to behave. And that's not human
Yeah.
nature.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think that is one of the reasons I kind of geared more towards classical, is because I thought, okay, well, I can use the energy in this space that supports, communication or learning, and then I can learn about communication. Now that will better my relationship, and so I start looking at it that way. And and it is, it's helped tremendously, obviously, of course, I think no relationship is perfect, but yeah, I mean, it's really when I started looking at, you know, what can I do? What actions can I take, and how can the feng
Right.
shui support me? And so I think
Right.
that's probably the biggest thing people can do is look at feng shui to support their actions. Yeah.
Right. So one of the things I say a lot is that to me, feng shui is a support system for our lives. We're talking about this Chinese art and science that is reputed to bring harmony and balance into your physical environment. So when our physical environment is more harmonious and balanced, then we just feel better. We're able to feel nurtured and supported by our environment, and therefore we can get the things that we want in our life. And so for some people, that looks different. But if you want to feel a sense of confidence, you want to feel a sense of empowerment, you want to feel healthy, right? A sense of well-being, then you should consider the significance of your physical environment. This is from a classical perspective, we already know this. This is how feng shui started. It was all about survival of the fittest. If you really boil it down, it's what side of the mountain am I living on so that I can not be blown away by crazy wind? Which is it shady? Is it sunny? Is it a place that I can thrive? Or am I planted my crops in a place that they're not going to grow, and so I'm going to die? So essentially, we are in the modern world, what we're benefiting from is this extremely detailed and dedicated practice of these ancient Chinese sages who documented and tested. And I mean, these are time-tested formulas. They didn't have technology. There was no technology. All they had to do was observe the land. And we're just benefiting from this amazing wisdom, which has miraculously survived all these hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's pretty amazing.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah. One of the things that I think also that you kind of touched on is the person's goals are important.
Yes.
Having the goal and seeing, okay, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I just want my space to feel good. I mean, that's certainly a goal, but I think most people don't realize that you can actually look at, like, what are your career goals, or what are your relationship goals, or what are your children's goals, and you can literally just use the energy in your home, and position them in a good position, tap into different formulas and everything, and it can help boost those goals and bring those opportunities, like you said.
I think that there's my experience and my thought is that there is a gap in what we understand here in the West. So here in the West, we're more likely to say, I want more financial security, or I'm looking for a relationship, or, I want more romance in my life, or I just want my space to feel good. We're like, tell me what I don't know about my house. Like, okay, I can tell you what you don't know about your house, but unless you have a very specific goal, it's not going to give you any information or give you anything to work toward. Whereas what I found with my clients that are Asian or from the East, they have a very specific goal. I want my son or my daughter to do well in school. I want them to be able to focus on their schoolwork so they can study harder. I have a bad relationship with my manager. I want to work on my relationship with my manager, because what that may do for me is it may give me a promotion or may give me a new opportunity. I'm concerned about the health of my spouse, and I want my spouse to find the right doctor. Like, they're looking for something very, very specific. And that, I think, is just a cultural difference between the way that we understand feng shui here in the West and the way it's experienced culturally in the East. And so sometimes I feel like what I'm doing with clients is helping them drill down into something this is why I have a discovery session with all my clients, because if you're just calling me to change the color of your drapes, then you're really not using me and all my skills and the years that I've spent studying and the time-tested formulas to the full use of their benefit. And that is
Yes.
kind of a shame, because you would then be missing out on an opportunity. Where am I going with this? The whole point is, I think that there's this cultural difference. And so the more that I can help my clients drill down into a specific goal, the more likely they are to be clear. And with that clarity, then we can all take action toward it. So here's an example. I have a client who is one of my very successful business clients who I worked with over the pandemic. Actually, I didn't actually think that I was going to be doing any on-sites during pandemic last year, but lo and behold, this is somebody who is in my ideal client, sort of niche, if you will, whose spouse found me and said, I want to bring in this practitioner. And when we started talking about the goals for his business, he said, I want to, just as an example, double my business, in a blah, blah, blah amount of time. Well, what does that mean? Are you talking about are you talking about dollars in your bank? Are you talking about number of clients? Are you talking about opportunities to pitch? And whatever it is, we need to drill that down even more. And so once we spent a lot of time getting really, really clear. And once we got really clear, and I could look at the Feng Shui and I looked at his Chinese astrology chart, like for me, everything sort of lit up. Like I could see vividly what needed to happen. And once we got him into better energy in the physical space and understanding what needed to balance his chart, we started using date selection. We started using the right spaces in the house. We started using his good personal directions. And while all that's happening, he's ready for the opportunity. He's working hard. He's doing his own manifestation work. And that is sort of this beautiful marriage of understanding your own responsibility, your own human luck, and bringing in the Feng Shui to help with the earth luck component and putting them together, because we only have about 2/3 of this puzzle that we can really work on. I can only do what I can do with the Feng Shui. And once you're really clear on exactly what you're looking for, then you can work toward it. And what's beautiful is his results have been remarkable. And like everybody's happy, he's happy, I'm happy. and his business is thriving. And I'm super excited to see all the things that he's doing. So that's just an example of what I mean about how having a specific goal is really pertinent.
Yeah, and with that, I think it's that old saying that says like opportunity or success is opportunity meets preparedness or something like that. It's something along those lines. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize it is all those little steps and accumulation of all the small things. I think, like I said, again, people, they're like, oh, maybe I have the goal of like being a, social media star or something. Oh, I can use this area of my
Let's
home
find out if
this
that's in your
year or
chart.
whatever. Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too. But at the same time, you're like, it's, maybe you haven't even created that YouTube channel and you're like, oh, if I just create the channel, it's going to blow up. No. There's some small steps in there.
That's not how the algorithm
happen.
works.
Yeah. And I think it's Gary Vee, the social media, like guru. He always says that, like success, like those viral videos, whatever. It's that one thing that was 10 years in the making. You might be there for 10 years, but it'll be that one thing that'll push you forward. Just, so it's all those little steps, in the accumulation. And then we bring the Feng Shui in, we look at everything else and we line everything up, and then it accumulates. And sometimes it's the skyrocket, and sometimes again, maybe it's taking you in a different direction or whatever, but yeah. So how did you start doing Feng Shui? What brought you to where you're at now? Talk about your journey. How did that look for you?
So I was a little bit of a weird kid. Like I don't know. When I look back on my childhood, I feel like I was a weird kid. I judge myself as being strange. I was never really into stuff that was super popular. I was never like, I didn't go to prom. I was happier reading the horoscope and learning about tarot cards and understanding that there's alternative stuff out there beyond the conventional world that I was sort of brought up in. I was born and raised in Ohio, and I feel like that was a very parochial kind of environment. And so when I started to be able as a young adult to be able to think for myself and decide what I was interested in, I went through a self-help period. Like I feel like I read every self-help book that I could possibly read to try to know myself better and be the best person that I could be. And I left Ohio after I graduated college, and I went to Los Angeles, where I got interested and introduced into Reiki. So I started Reiki practice. I met my now husband. We started building a life together. And all that time, I'm like reading books, collecting stuff. My first book on anything related to the home was a Vastu book, which I totally didn't understand at the time. And I started reading books on Feng Shui. And while this is all happening, I'm in a corporate career. I'm thinking I'm going on a trajectory with my business, with a business, not the business I'm doing with Feng Shui, but like a whole other career. I was in college admissions counseling for 20 years. And while I'm doing that, we're moving around. I'm reading about Feng Shui. And as I'm moving and I'm reading about Feng Shui and I'm thinking, oh, my life is going to go on this very specific trajectory. I'm with this company. I'm going to move up. I'm going to build myself into, continue climbing up the corporate ladder, if you will. Like I thought I was going to be there for a really long time. And things were going really well. They moved me from one area of the country to here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I opened a unit, and my husband and I bought a house. And very quickly after we bought this house, this trajectory that I was on with my company went sour very quick. The manager and I didn't get along. Like the relationships were falling apart. Things just started to crumble. It just felt like things were like the rug was getting pulled out from under my feet. I did not understand what was happening. So there just got to a point where I was like, done. Like I finished that relationship. I made a choice with my career. I stayed with the company, but went in a different direction, got away from that. And once the dust settled, I was like, literally, I was sitting in my house, like looking around going, maybe it's the house. Like this all happened right after we moved into the house. Like, I wonder. And I feel like we all get to that point where we start to have this suspect about the symptoms of what's happening. And when you know a little bit of information about Feng Shui, you go, oh, I wonder if it's the Feng Shui. So I actually hired somebody, and I thought, because I'd moved into this house, even though I had read all these books, I kind of thought I was getting more like low budget interior design because I'd moved into this house and there wasn't anything on the walls. And I used to work at Pier 1 Imports. I didn't decorate anything. I just was like deer in headlights. I was sort of immobilized. I couldn't figure out what to do. And so bless this woman who was my first teacher, came in, told me to do all these things. I'm very task oriented, so I did them all. Like, you tell me to do them, it's like a recipe. I'm going to follow the recipe. Mm-hmm. So once I started doing that, it started to pull some of the pieces together, right? So I started to feel like, oh, this starts to feel better. I feel like I have more control. I'm taking action toward getting into better alignment. And then actually, I started to get frustrated because I felt like I was running around trying to fix stuff with this early Feng Shui that I was doing. It didn't feel like it had enough hold for me, is the only word I can use. So then I got introduced to another practitioner who was doing classical work. And I was like, what are you doing? Wait, there's classical Feng Shui? Like, what is this? There's more? Because I had started with BTB and I was hungry for more information. So I picked up a classical book. I feel like I ate it. Like I couldn't get it into my body fast enough, into my brain. And I was like, oh, okay, this is Feng Shui. So then I get with my classical teacher and I spend 1.5 years with my teacher. And as I'm doing that, I'm learning these formulas, I'm testing stuff on my own house, and the energy starts to really come together. And I made a very specific change. I said to my husband, I was like, honey, we need to change the position of the bed. And he was like, no, it's not going to fit on the other wall. And I was like, honey, we need to change the position of the bed. And I'd like learning all this information. And so once we made that change, like I'm doing all this other stuff, but this is sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. Like it knitted it together. We made that change and everything really started to light up and connect the energy in a completely different way. And so I started to really understand that like, oh, if I can do this, like anybody can do this. So then I really started practicing with other people and building my business. And the whole time I'm with this company, right? So I spent 10 years with this company while I'm learning Feng Shui, doing college admissions counseling, totally unhappy in this job, like coming home crying in golden handcuffs, because what I had done with the Feng Shui is I made so much money. I couldn't leave. Like I was so good at that job. They paid me really, really well. Like I got extra zeros in my paycheck that we were not expecting after I started working on the Feng Shui. And I was like, oh, this really works. Like I had better relationships with my students. Like I had great relationships with my managers. Like things were just going really, really well. And so, then I could see it happening. Like I knew what was coming down the pipeline because I'm doing Chinese astrology. I'm working on the Feng Shui. I could see what was happening. I knew that there was going to be a change at the company. So I was very prepared. But the day that the whole building got laid off, like I lost my job, but everybody did. It wasn't like I was this lone, and I feel badly that all those people had to lose their job in order for me to follow my dreams, but we all got laid off.
Oh,
and
no.
everyone is really upset. And I'm like, it's my day. Like I get to go do my thing, because I was so unhappy. And I knew, building my business and studying all this feng shui, that the time had come for me to spread my wings. And it was the universe giving me the kick that I needed, because I was going to stay. So now I'm doing full feng shui full time. That's the long version of my story.
Oh, no, I love it. Yeah. So I'm doing this series of like feel good stories and just insights, but I really want to do a series where it's like feng shui gone wrong, because everyone has those stories too, I think.
Well, and as practitioners, I truly believe this, right? I sort of believe that I had to go through a bunch of crappy things in order to understand how to understand what wasn't working, so that I can share with the client, like, I know that this is not working in your house because I experienced this. And two, what steps you can do to get out of it. So I feel like sometimes, this is what my teacher said, everyone always wants the whole enchilada, and sometimes all you get are the nachos. So when you know what isn't working, you can bring in the right nachos and see about making a change. It's a little bit like hemorrhaging. Like when you're bleeding, you just first you have to stop the bleeding before you can build yourself back up. Or like if you're in a hole, you have to stop digging the hole in order to be able to climb out. And yeah, I mean, we've all been through. I mean, my first house, when I first started getting into classical feng shui, was like my test house. I built a walkway with 4 formulas. It was a beautiful walkway. I put a fountain in. The day that I wasn't even home, the day I put that fountain in, I was at work, and I was like, honey, they're going to come, they're going to put the fountain in, they're going to turn it on at this hour, blah, blah, blah. Everything is going to be fine. He calls me like 20 minutes later, and he was like, oh my God, you're never going to believe. I was like, what's wrong? He's like, you need to just come over here. Of course I couldn't come over. Like, tell me what's going on. They turned the fountain on, and 15 minutes later, I got a call about the interview, and I'm so excited, and blah, 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 because like everything clicked. That was like the good stuff, right? The crappy stuff was, oh my God, my stove was in the wrong place and we were dealing with a legal issue. Oh my God, we were sleeping on the wrong wall and we had a huge water leak in our back. Like we've all gone through crappy things to be able to say, this is why you have to change this. This is why this works. I moved into a house, activated some really nasty stuff that I didn't even know at the time, because I just didn't know. Like it wasn't part of my field of understanding or anything that I had been exposed to. It wasn't even like I missed it. It just, no one taught me this thing. And so activating really negative stuff during construction and all of the crap that happens when construction goes bad, and having to dig myself out of that and using the right stuff to get out of it helps me understand how it works, why it works, when it works, and be able to give that to a client. Sometimes I feel like with practitioners, we have to be our own success story, because if you can't relate to what your client is going through, then they're not going to believe you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It definitely, I mean, we are really our biggest test subjects. So, with that being said, I know earlier you talked about the gentleman that you've helped, and he's, clicking along. Yeah. What is your favorite feng shui story? Like a client, whether it's a client or yourself, we kind of talked about some of that already, but I really would love to hear your favorite one, your favorite success story.
Well, in general, the clients that find me that I seem to do the best with are, like I said, intuitive. Usually they've got something that they feel intuitive about. They have something going on. They're also really good at working on their own stuff. And I found that actually men are really good at this. I know that a lot of the people who are listening about feng shui are typically women. And usually these are men who are into metaphysics in one way or another. They're into crystals, they're into energy, they're into being a super manifester, they're into self-mastery. And so they're finding their way to feng shui either because they picked up a book or because some wonderful woman in their life said, hey, let's do this. So my most satisfying clients are actually men because I find that they're almost always more disciplined. They're willing to do the work. A lot of times they're not so afraid. And when I tell them to do something, they do it. They're very compliant. And so I feel like some of my most successful stories are these men who hear me, trust me, they're doing their own work, and they go, okay, Jillian, tell me what to do. I'm going to do it. And then we evaluate based on what happens, if it's working, if it's not working. Usually it's working. And then what else can we do? Because they usually are very clear. I'm here and point A, and I want to get to point B. I'm trying to transform my life between these 2 points. How do I get there? So almost always, and you can understand this from a classical perspective, not only can I help you see what the opportunities are to get from point A to point B, but I can help you see beyond, because we're going to continue to work together over time. They're going to understand that Feng Shui is not a one-time event. We're going to continue working on it. We need to continue to adjust to keep you in the slipstream. So those are typically my most satisfying and exciting clients. And they're also willing to do some of the more obscure stuff sometimes, more than just turning your desk a specific way or turning your bed a specific way. Being willing to do some of the more fun, and fun for me, advanced formulas that involve putting in a walkway or installing a water feature in the right place, or building other kinds of setups that are more meaningful using timing. A lot of my really satisfying and most successful clients are using date selection, that they're calling me and saying, I need to sign a contract. I need to hire somebody. I need to take a trip. I need to do something with publicity. When's the right timing? And so we're adding these layers of fine tuning, if you will, that help their results be even more vibrant, which they get really excited about. They're happy. I'm happy. It's like a win-win. And then I feel like I'm really able to help people understand what their possibilities are. So this is just a couple of examples of success stories. People who have gone from, these are gentlemen who are expanding their real estate business significantly. They're flipping houses. They're making a ton more money on the sale. That, like, I have this one client who's a real estate agent who he flips houses and properties. And when we use the right timing and we work together, the sale goes smoother, permits get put through quicker, like the process is just much smoother for him. It gets done faster. He makes 20% more on the sale than he thought he was going to make, and like super happy. Like, that's like an example. This client who I worked with last year, who made a significant amount of money in terms of he's a financial advisor. So he's bringing in more assets. He's helping the clients make more money. He's building connections. His business is growing in ways that he wanted, but didn't know how to get there. Right. So we work together, and, he's on TV, he's doing TV spots. He's like, things are really flowing for him, and he's starting to feel what it's like to be in the groove. These are both gentlemen, right? So I have another third client who we've been working with for a really long time, who, the sweetest gentleman. When I met him, was really, really in a hard place. He had gotten divorced. He was living in a house with his kids. It was still like life was up in arms. Like, he was trying to make himself better. He'd read all these Feng Shui books and was kind of freaking out because he couldn't understand. He was like, felt really stuck and hadn't done anything to his house. When I walked in, this is a true story. When I walked into that house, there was not a stitch of flooring on that house. It was like subfloor. And I was like, oh, and there wasn't any furniture. It was kind of bizarre. But we worked together. We figured out that house was not working for him for a long list of reasons. He staged it. He moved. He bought another house with me. We worked on his office. His business grew. We moved into a new office. Now he's like branching into a franchise. Like, his life is really thriving. He's got a lot on his plate, but when I look at it from like a 10,000 point, like high view, I can see how dramatically his life has changed over time. Now he's in a new relationship. He, found somebody during a pandemic, and like, it's just really, and will call me and be like, we need a grand opening date for the franchise. Like, let's get going. So it's just nice to feel really appreciated, to see these gentlemen have so much success and being willing to continue in the process. Now, these are my clients that, I found a lot of success with. This is not to say that I don't have success with women, because I have stories of women who I've worked with who, like, I have a client who, bless her heart, she was a hoarder and went through a bunch of psychological stuff and totally transformed her house, and her life has completely changed. We renovated her kitchen. We landscaped her backyard, and she's doing really well in her business. She's connecting with people. She, bless her, she got COVID, but we helped her get through it. She made it through COVID. other women who I have worked with who work for other people, but finding satisfaction in other areas of their lives. Like I have this one client, she's an amazing artist and she works a day job and knows she's going to stay with the day job because of the kind of day job that it is, but wants to feel like more support in her art. So working together, she had a better relationship with her brother. She got a fellowship and she went to New Zealand and she got this amazing grant to like study and do all this art. And so, but these are people who are working on it, right? These are not people who are like, tell me how to change my drapes and my, life will be better. That's not what I'm doing. So I feel like I'm not exclusively working with men. I work with all kinds of people, but I find that the people who are most satisfying to me and are the most satisfied clients are the people that are really doing the work. It's very frustrating when a client is in a crappy place and they have an unrealistic expectation that if they change this one thing, everything is going to be better. And that's not always true. Sometimes if you are creating your own block, then it doesn't matter how many opportunities come. You're not ready for the opportunity. So that's another sort of thing that's like a little bit strange. Like if you're not ready for the opportunity, if I make perfect feng shui, which is no such thing, the opportunity is still not going to come to you because you're not ready for it. So there is this little bit of connecting the energy in a way that you are sort of responsible for your own piece. I mean, I could go on and on. But these are the things that make me the most satisfied as a practitioner, to see people doing well, to see them thriving, to see them getting more of what they want, and knowing that they're doing their part. That because I only have so much, I don't want to say responsibility, but it can't all be on your feng shui practitioner. It's not fair.
Yeah.
You do need to do your part. If that answer your question.
Yes, no, yeah, that's so true. I mean, earlier you kind of mentioned like some, you just love to self-help. You went through a lot of self-help books and stuff like that. And that is one thing that I always suggest to people, like you have to me, I find it hard to sit and read, but I listen to, I subscribe to Audible, so I can, like find, those Tony Robbins books and, you know what I mean? So because it really does like you have to feed into yourself.
Yeah.
You have to better yourself. You have to be in a position that you're just a better person. It really does start within. And so what do you do? I know, how do you address that downward spiral? I know you kind of say it's like a troubleshooting, I think almost sometimes too, where you're kind of getting down and narrowing down what their goals are. But do you always encourage your clients, I know, to do those self-help things? I always try to tell people, like, if you don't read a book, if you can't sit and read a book, if you don't have time, you can put YouTube on in your headphones and watch Wayne Dyer or Tony Robbins or what, those, all those people, whatever self-help guru you love, but I always tell people you have to be doing something. You really have to be doing something.
And so I totally agree with that. You make a really good point. People need to be doing something, right? And I think that's okay. So two parts. One is, I think this is why a lot of feng shui practitioners start to go down a spiritual path, because we understand there's a karmic component and there's a spiritual component beyond what we can do in feng shui. This is the destiny. This is the heaven luck. This is stuff that's out of our control that we need to be able to connect to on another dimension. So the more that we do that as practitioners, the more that we're going to attract the clients that are interested in those things, right? So I have found very early on that, like, I am very much a mirror for my client. If I'm going through something emotional, that client is going to show up for me in order for me to deal with it. And the good news is I've been able to figure that out pretty quickly so that I can adjust myself very quickly. And when I'm working with a client who needs to do some of their own work, I will often look at their chart and figure out what they need in order to go down that path. For some people, it's listening to Tony Robbins or reading a self-help book or going to therapy. But for some people, it's getting into an exercise practice. There are people who run and it's like meditation. You could just get it. I'm not a runner. My husband's a runner, bless his heart. Sleep is my cardio. I don't like to exercise but for him, he needs to get going. And I know other clients that are like that. For some clients, it's art. Sometimes it's getting away from your family and going to an art class and getting into a crafting or something that feeds your soul, so that you're getting away from thinking, repetitive thoughts and you're getting into something else. So I I work to assess what the client really needs in order to feel like they can move forward. Like I had this one client who last year, she actually won a Batsa reading with me, and bless her heart, she was the sweetest little thing. She had a son and she told me about her life, and we looked at her chart, and she had told me about a time period in her life where she was really in touch with religion and her spirituality. And through some of the events in her life, she got off track. Now that her son was born and is thriving and is doing well, she's starting to look around going like, what's my life now? And when we looked at her chart, we saw like very clearly that there was an imbalance currently, and the time period that she felt the most supported was when she was involved in her religious activities and she felt connected to a community. And it became very clear, like, go do that, right? If, for example, when you know this as a practitioner, if your chart is missing this element, you need to go take action around that element in order to fill it. So
Yes.
So my guidance to her and my recommendation to her was like, go back to that community, go heal that part, go get involved with something that feels nurturing to you. And for her, just hearing that was like a relief. It was like the confirmation she needed. Oh, it's okay for me to do this. Oh, this is what made me feel good. Like, oh, I can go do this again. She's doing really well. She's such a sweetheart. She's doing really well.
Yeah.
And I think that the more that I get into reading charts and looking at people's feng shui and connecting with people, I mean, I worked in college admissions for 20 years. So I feel like I worked with a very wide variety of the population, from high school students up to doctorate students, and, all different kinds of populations. And one of the things that I learned is that people really need kindness. Everybody is going through something. No one's life is perfect. It's just not even possible. Even people who make a gazillion dollars, no one's life is perfect, and everybody needs kindness. And if someone is calling for feng shui, they're suffering with something. They might not really understand what's happening. They might not even be able to fully articulate it until we start getting into a discovery session. Because usually I'm asking a lot of questions and I'm digging deep into finding out what's really going on. But people really need compassion. And I feel like feng shui is a really wonderful resource to help us support each other and be more of a global community. And it's a really wonderful tool for people who have not experienced feng shui to do some self-nurturing. Because if you're suffering with something and something is on your heart or on your mind, then taking some action to getting into a more supportive physical environment can bring a huge relief and help you get closer to what you want. And this is what I mean by accelerating your results. Like, where you want to go, like, let's get you there faster. It's as it, like, this is something that a colleague of mine said one time. The universe wants you to have something, and it will come to you whether it has to go around the world to get to you or not. You get to decide. If you want to get into the slipstream, then it can come to you faster. If you're not in the slipstream, what's meant for you will come to you. It's just going to take a lot longer.
It's so nice to talk to you today. Just getting to know each other and kind of putting that out to the world. I think a lot of times we do the interviews and it's like, give 5 feng shui tips on office or something like that. It's very structured. I really just wanted something that was just very conversational, insightful, just kind of fun. Other practitioners could get to know each other, and people who are not experienced in feng shui, they come to this and find the right person for them. So I
love that you're doing this, because you're really highlighting that there are practitioners who are coming from different backgrounds, having different tools and resources, have a niche or a vibe or a connection with the right kind of people, and someone is going to hear that. And the other thing that I feel like what you're doing, which I really appreciate, is you're bringing in camaraderie, because I do feel like there's quite a bit of competition and that it can get a little bit ugly. But when we come from a place of understanding that there's enough abundance out there for everybody, then we can be more globally connected, which I think is a beautiful
that's true.
thing.
And so there are definitely, I think I could probably interview everybody that does feng shui probably in the whole world, and I wouldn't find anyone that does the exact same thing or has the same audience or has the same students or whatever. And so there 100% there's room for for all of us,
Everybody.
Yeah. And
Christian for
so,
everybody.
yeah, my hope is that an audience will connect with, someone in the group, and they'll be able to, follow their work or hire them or whatever. So, yeah, yeah.
That's so great.
And I'm having fun doing it. So I'm just having fun talking to people.
That's the most important part. If you're having fun, then it comes through.
Yeah. So where can we find you? I know I'm going to put links to everything in all the show notes that I'm doing. And so tell us what you're offering. You have a newsletter that you offer.
Yeah. So I like to encourage people to get to know their practitioner before they try to hire somebody, because I feel like we all do so many different things. And one really great way to get to know me is to get on my newsletter list, because it's free. And I typically put out a newsletter twice a month. If there's any special events, they're on the newsletter, and you might get an email or two throughout the year saying, hey, this thing is happening. Maybe like I'm putting out a class, or I'm putting out a special webinar, I'm doing a sale for a geopathic stress device, whatever it is that I'm doing. So you might get an email for that, but it helps you understand a little bit about how I communicate, the tools that I'm using, the perspectives that I'm taking. So you can really feel like, oh, I'm driving with that. I really like what she's saying. I like what she's doing. Maybe I want to take a class, or I want to hire, or I know somebody who needs her services. So that is a great place to start. And then if you feel like you're driving or there's a fit and you want to have a discovery session, you can always contact me for a discovery session. So my business is Feng Shui in Motion. The website is fsinmotion.com. People can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. I really, really had fun talking to you.
I had a great time.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.
For me, it sort of felt like a homecoming. Part of my lineage is with Grandmaster Yap Chang Hai, who has passed, and unfortunately passed before I really got into my classical training. But there's a recording of him singing, if you will, or because everything is an oral tradition, right? So he's like singing the 24 mountains, which are the 24 sections of the compass that we use, for those of you who don't know. And when I first heard this audio, I started crying, because I was like, oh my God, I feel like this is a voice that I know, I've heard this before. It was really sort of this amazing experience that made me feel like, okay, this is the universe telling me I'm on the right track. And so I knew that I had to keep going. And
yeah, it really is. When you start putting things together, I kind of mentioned that I started with my first introduction to classical feng shui was Joey Yap, which most people are probably familiar with. If you're not and you're listening or watching, I think it's he very much makes it very easy. And he really does put that in your mind, and so I think, he puts that it's something more to it, there's something more to it, and he does it in an easy way. And so for me, I felt like I had to just keep learning and digging in, because as since it is very, it's not surfacey, but it's very basic to make it understandable. And so I was like, I have to know more. And it was so funny. I always tell people that I'm like, so when I was younger, I listened to a lot of if I would find an artist that I liked, I would find all their underground stuff, and I would find, the not popular stuff. And I was just very into I have to, have everything from this artist. And that's how I felt about Joey Yap. And so I started looking back at his old stuff, and we would find stuff on, from online. It was literally just him with a whiteboard, and he was flying the stars, and but yeah, you want to know more and more and more, and you find these old traditions, these old, thoughts and theories, and it's just really fascinating. It's really fascinating to me. But yeah,
Joey Yap is great. I mean, he's done more for exposing and helping people understand Chinese metaphysics than I think that has ever happened before in the world. And so we're all very lucky to have his knowledge and his wisdom to be able to be spread and shared so that people can really benefit from this. And one of the things that he does really beautifully is that he makes it, I mean, the word that I use is digestible.
Yes.
Because our brains can only handle, I mean, the truth is our brains can only handle so much. And when our brain comes into something that it doesn't know, it's almost like you have brain freeze, because your neurons are firing in a way that it doesn't know what to do with it. And if you can just relax and let your brain file it away, even if you don't fully understand it, and then continue learning, you'll get what you need. And then over time, as you continue to digest and continue to receive and continue to absorb, then things will start to click. Even as a practitioner, and you can understand this, you start to study something, you go to the next thing, you go to the next thing, and then all of a sudden you'll hear something later down the line and go, oh, that connects with this. And all of a sudden it becomes more vibrant and more brilliant, and you start to understand it in a completely different way.
Be sure to follow the link in the show notes to find the guests and all their work. Also, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the little notification button so you can be notified when new videos come out.